call to order our June 10th meeting. Happy afternoon, everybody. We'll do a quick roll call. We have Trustee Coleman.
Yes, here.
Trustee Hall, here. Trustee Franz.
Here.
Trustee Constant.
Here.
Okay. We just need a
I'll make a
motion.
motion to adopt the agenda. I'll second.
Okay, motion and second. All those in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Anyone here for public comment on closed session items?
Michelle.
Seeing none. All right, we're going to adjourn to closed session.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We are calling this meeting back to order. We have everybody present now, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Right.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we have just a quick report out from closed session. Item 2.1, no reportable action. Item 2.2, no reportable action. And item 2.3, case number 04-2425, be approved 5-0. Announcement of meeting protocols. I learned this week that I don't have to read the entire thing verbatim. It's listed for you, but I'm going to give you an abbreviated version. So, welcome to tonight's Board of Trustees meeting. We're excited to have you here and encourage your participation. We kindly ask that you keep your comments respectful, refraining from profanity, personal attacks, or inappropriate behavior to help ensure a productive meeting for everyone. You'll have opportunities to speak during the public comment section for items not on the agenda and on specific agenda items as they come up. To keep things running smoothly, if fewer than 10 people wish to speak, each person will have 3 minutes. If 10 or more people want to comment, the time limit will be 1.5 minutes per person. We recommend that any concerns about a specific district employee be shared with their immediate supervisor or school principal as outlined in our board policy. Please fill out a comment form in the lobby to speak tonight, and we'll call on you when it's your turn. A reminder that this meeting is being recorded and archived. Thank you. All right, that was fast. So we are moving on to reports and communications. Tonight, Trustee Constant is going to read our board expectations.
Thank you. To prepare all students for life, college, and career, we do this through high-quality academic opportunities for all students and supporting student academic success. To engage in partnership with families in the community, our schools are a welcoming, safe environment that serve as the center of student learning, activities, athletics, and performing arts, and promoting a sense of community in our schools and the surrounding areas. Throughout all this, we utilize effective governance and business practices by remaining open, transparent, and accountable to the community, while serving as an employer of choice with the highest quality teachers and staff.
All right, thank you. Next up will be board reports. I'm going to mix it up. Do you want to go first, Trustee Schutz?
Yeah, turn on the mic here. I think very fun time of the year with all the graduations. So I was at Antelope on the bigger field in more intimate setting over here at Oakmont. It's amazing. The speeches from these students make you like reflect on your own life a little bit. You're like, I could have done that. No, just kidding. But these kids, it's great. Their aspirations are amazing, and you know what they're off to. And it was a great celebration, and we made it through it, right? So hopefully they're enjoying their summer break, and I think that's really all I have to report.
I'll keep it short. I also really enjoyed. I went to Roseville High School and Granite High School, so that was my first time at Roseville High School. I just enjoy seeing the nuances and how everyone does it a little different. And then I also made it up to the Placer County Committee of School District boundaries or district. I'm sure I have that wrong, but that was last week for me. But that's it. Thanks.
we'll be there. I didn't know you were jumping all the way down here.
I'm gonna go last.
I also went to a couple graduations, Pathways and West Park. Loved the heat. Glad we moved the time to when we did. It actually worked out pretty well. As Marla mentioned, she and I both serve on the county committee on school district reorganization, which we went to, and our big accomplishment this quarter was a major revision of their bylaws. And that's about it.
And mine was just going to schools for graduation. Congrats on a great season, graduation season. I went to Wood Creek and West Park, and that's all I need to share tonight.
All right, awesome. I got to hang out with Marla. It was my first time going to the Granite Bay graduation. And like she said, each school just does it a little bit differently. So it's fun to see and just feel the atmosphere of each school. I got to give my City of Roseville, my high school intern, her diploma. So that was really sweet and special. And then I was at Roseville Adult School. Oh, and Roseville High School. This is my favorite word comment. I took a steal from the Tiffany playbook with the photo, but that's me giving my son, my oldest son, his diploma, and my cheeks are just so big. I don't think I could be smiling any bigger. So that was very fun. Marla was correct in that you don't have enough time to cry. It just goes very quickly. And then we were there with Mr. Basham, and he was able to get like a sneaky shot from the back as he walked up. So that was just extra special and fun, as was that Roseville Adult School graduation. And if you haven't been able to attend the Roseville Adult School graduation, add it to your must-do bucket list, because it really is just very sweet and special, and you get to learn about each student, and the teacher shares about the student, and then the student has the opportunity to speak. You just get to hear their stories and why they are back to school, later in life for some of them. So it's very sweet. And then I got to see the amazing Dr. Sue Perot's at the Sierra Workforce Summit at Sierra College. And she was there specifically highlighting our dual enrollment programs and how we partner so well with Sierra College, our CTE pathways, and how we're all working together in the county to create a very strong workforce. So I didn't know you were going to be there. I was taking pictures of you, and so great job. And it is nice to see what partnership and collaboration we have with our local community colleges, Sac State and William Jessup. So, all right, that's all I've got. Thank you for the photos.
Those are awesome. You get to enjoy that special moment. So cool.
It was really fun, and he doesn't even seem like he was embarrassed. Look at his smile. He knew that was going to happen, so he just embraced it. It was great. Okay, 4.3 Superintendent's report and any communications received.
All right, well, thank you. No communications, and my only thing from the graduations is my son graduated from West Park. I think he was the only one of 25 graduates to drop his diploma case as he crossed the stage, and I gave it to him. And the best part, there is a video where I absolutely smack him with the next diploma case handed to me on the butt as he goes across the stage, right in front of the family. So that was our highlight. But just want to express my appreciation for our staff and our site principals. May is a busy time with AMAs, graduations, the retirement reception. I just want to express my appreciation to the board for your attendance at all of these events. I know you have a lot of other things going on within your own family and their graduations as well, but just want to say how much we all appreciate your involvement in these ceremonies, the AMAs, representing all the good work that we do. So thank you for that.
Right, yes, congratulations to Jace also. Okay, committee reports.
Actually, do you have a...
Wait.
And Kashia, she's daughter.
Whose daughter, Kashia?
Oh, your daughter graduated.
Yes.
Oh, congratulations to her. Okay, we need everybody's photo next week. All right, 4.4 committee reports. I don't believe we have.
We do.
Oh, we do.
Yeah, the board policy review committee met on May 23rd. I didn't give the review last time because we were going to have the items on today's agenda. You'll see a whole bunch of policies in your consent calendar, the superintendent update section, mostly minor changes to conform with changing laws, with BP 2121 change to align CSBA's policy with the policy governance model practices of our board, business service updates and human resources updates for all clarifications to align with our current practices and current law updates. Education services updates, the same, clarifications to align with current practice and law updates. Student services updates, mostly clarifications to align with student practice and law updates, as well as a new policy which you'll see, which is based on a year of staff work and stakeholder engagement to comply with AB 3216 from 2024. So we'll obviously have an opportunity to see those here in a few minutes.
All right, thank you.
I'm just curious as far as like attendance, have we been getting any, because we've only had a couple now, I think this year, right? You had anyone showing up to those for public comment or?
Not this year. Last year we had a lot. And the previous year we had a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of hit and miss.
I would say at the beginning, Joe, you had some for some business items, correct, for grants? Yeah, so it was like one or two for some grant policy in the fall, I believe.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, and then RSEA reports done during the summer, I suppose. Okay. Okay, so moving on to public comment. We have one public comment so far. Is there anybody else? Just Joyce Henry then will be our only one. So you can come on up. You'll have 3 minutes since there's less than 10 people. If anybody else is wanting to make a public comment, you can still fill out a card. Come on up. Thank you.
So I took a look at the agenda for tonight and I saw that in tonight's consent agenda, you intend to rescind policy 0415, equity. And what I wonder is what part of that policy offends or, what problem does the board and the district leadership have with that policy? What language, which lines, what specifically do you object to? And then are you aware of potential harm that removal may have for some families, some students, just by changing that language, by removing it, even if it may be redundant? The message of this rescindment sends to all marginalized groups, poor, people of color, people of non-conforming sexual orientations, people from other nations, anyone not white, heterosexual, or Christian, anyone different from us, who looks different from us, comes from a different background, may feel that the intention is to ignore them or to not work hard to meet their needs, that they don't matter. And I just, so I don't know that that's what you mean. I doubt that that's what you mean. I know there's such good people here, so just be careful with your choices. So if you don't want to risk sending that message to the most vulnerable people in the district, please consider also how terrified the students and families must feel right now, considering the current climate in our country. So if policy 0415, equity, is redundant, it may be, so be it. All the better to let the most vulnerable people know that you have their backs and that you care about them and intend to support them in their educational journey. So the elimination of this policy gives district students and families the opposite message. Regardless of the intention of the board and district leadership, diversity is a fact on all 8. You guys have all been to the campuses. It's a fact on all the campuses. And of course, all the students must have access to and be included in all the opportunities that the district offers. It is up to the district leadership and board to make sure that each student has equitable access to those opportunities. Students farther from their educational goals need much more help reaching them. That help is the responsibility of everyone in the district. Public schools, by their very nature, are diverse, and it's the duty of the district leaders and educators to include all students with actions toward equity for all of them. We're stronger together. Thank you.
All right, anyone else with public comment? No? All right, thank you, Joyce. Moving on, we will take the consent agenda. I know you mentioned you wanted to pull a couple things, so anyone who has items that they would like to pull?
I do. I'd like to pull 5131.8 mobile communication devices and 6142.94 history, social science instruction.
And
Hold on one second.
Sure.
Sorry, will you repeat those? Say those for me.
5131.8
Okay,
and 6142.94.
okay, and then trustee Schutz?
yeah, I'd like to pull policy 0415.
Okay, and any others? Good? Okay, so do we want to make a motion to approve all of them except those three?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda except for those three policies stated.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and roll call vote for this. Trustee Constant?
Yes.
Trustee Coleman?
Yes.
Paul, yes. Franz?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Schutz, yes. Motion passes 5-0.
Heidi, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Given we have a pretty full agenda, I don't know how long the discussion on the policies are going to go. Should we consider maybe moving, getting through all the business stuff and then going back to the policies, or are you comfortable doing the policies right away? I'm just not sure how deep the conversations are going to be.
What do the two of you, I know you had mentioned.
One of mine is probably a little bit quicker, and one I have a little bit more to say. So
Okay.
however you want to do that.
Do you want to take your quicker one and then Bill's and table your one that you want more time for at the
Sure.
end?
If the others are going to be fairly short, then it's okay. I don't know if they're going to get really long. Just want to get through some of the stuff that I know staff has been dying to show us.
I just asked what your motivation, so meaning we would still talk about it?
Yeah,
but
just
it would be
agenda
later.
order, just get all the business action items done and then come back.
As long as you talk about it, I don't want to push it off.
I would maybe want to do trustee Schutz's now simply because, oh, is there a person here? Oh, I thought we would do that one since someone did come to speak on that one. But if she's not here, then I'm also okay moving them all to the end. What would you all?
I don't want to stay till the end. I mean, I don't want to do mine at the very end after the board study, because I know that's going to be, on the LCAP, that's going to be extensive. I'd like to hit it when we're a little bit fresher, since we're taking action on it.
I'm inclined just to move forward as according to the normal order agenda.
Let's just go for it. Go for it. Okay, so let's take 5131.8 first.
Okay.
Is that fine?
Sure.
Just do them in the order that.
All right, so let me pull out my notes on this. Now, Pete, maybe you can help me out with this, because I'd like to give a lot of information, but I don't know if I need to make a motion first of what I'd really like to have happen, or share my information first.
Generally, we ask questions, get clarifications, and then if there's going to be significant potential changes, then we usually have a motion so that we are talking to whatever the changes may or may not be.
Well, I'm not sure which order. Heidi, you tell me, which order would you like it to be in?
You know what? I am so sorry. I was scrolling to
That's
find it
okay.
on here. I would say questions first. Do you have?
Okay,
do you have questions?
I don't have questions right now. I have information I'd like to share and a change to the policy, and then I will make a motion of a change to the policy.
Okay, so go ahead and share your information, I would say.
Okay. All right. So my desire is to give the board time to become better informed about the best option for our district before we make a decision on our mobile communication policy. I would like to specifically ask staff and board members to explore a bell-to-bell policy beyond just an instructional time policy. I want to give a little bit of background on that. I've studied the effects of phones and social media through books and articles, such as The Anxious Generation. I've studied the implementation of phone policies around the United States schools, and I have personally witnessed the effects of a bell-to-bell policy as a parent at Cooley Middle School this past year. I feel there are compelling reasons to consider a bell-to-bell policy in our district, and I feel it is important for the board to take time to learn more about and seriously consider this option. I would guess that we can all agree that the evidence overwhelmingly supports that cell phone and screen time limitations for kids are good in general, and this includes limitations during the school day for better instruction as well as mental health. There are two basic types of limitations that are happening around the United States. The first is an instructional time limitation, which means during class time, phones will be stowed away. Phones can come out between classes and during lunchtime. The bell-to-bell policies mean that phones are not to be used anytime during the school day, in class, or during passing periods and lunch. Currently, 15 states have state law that requires some restriction, and most of these laws allow for district-level implementation like ours. 5 of the 15 state laws require bell-to-bell restrictions, with more laws coming online. 6 of the 15 state laws have come up since April of just this year. So first I wanted to talk about the instructional time limitation, which I believe is how our policy as written, as presented to us tonight is. The phone restrictions during class time will absolutely improve the educational quality. Many of our classrooms currently have phone caddies or ask students to keep their phones put away during instructional time. This is fantastic. The policy before us tonight, as written, is an instructional time limitation. An instructional time limitation is very good and much better than no limitation at all. A bell-to-bell restriction goes further than the classroom, however. It impacts an entire campus culture and has the very real proven possibility of greatly improving student mental health. The greatest danger with phones is not their ability to communicate with mom and dad. It is that they hold addictive apps and are a tool that can be used for school ills such as bullying, fighting, drug use, and the harmful spread of misinformation. They hold students' attention and greatly hamper face-to-face communication. 97% of students use phones during school, with an average of 43 minutes per school day spent primarily on social media, YouTube, and gaming. These are known addictive apps, and they are designed to be addictive. Excuse me. The use of social media increases the risk of poor mental health, including experiencing symptoms of depression and anxiety. Rates of school loneliness has doubled since 2012 at the advent and proliferation of smartphones. We just passed a revised version of Policy 5131.6 for alcohol and other drugs. The opening paragraph of that policy states, "The governing board believes that the use of alcohol or other drugs adversely affects a student's ability to achieve academic success, is physically and emotionally harmful, and has serious social and legal consequences. The superintendent or designee shall develop comprehensive programs and activities to foster safe, healthy, and drug-free environments to support academic achievement." I believe we can substitute the word social media for alcohol or other drugs in that statement, because it has similar effects, and we should consider the ban of these apps on our sites through a bell-to-bell phone restrictions. There is a list. The Phone Free Schools movement had in-depth discussions with administrators who have effectively implemented phone-free policies. And these are some of the areas that these administrators consistently highlighted: that there are fewer distractions, less cyberbullying, fewer fights and social media-related drama, increased engagement both inside and outside of the classroom, improved attendance because students aren't texting their parents to call them out of school, boosted efficiency, teachers report being ahead of schedule on their lesson plans because they aren't spending time policing phones and because students are completing classwork and assignments faster, more reading, there's an increase in books checked out from their libraries, improved teacher morale and retention, less mid-class absenteeism of students requesting to use the restroom so that they can go get on their phones, more vibrant lunchrooms. The lunchrooms are phone-free schools are markedly louder because students have face-to-face conversations with their peers, less cheating and less reported stress among students. In summary, a bell-to-bell phone-free policy provides students with an average of 7 hours each school day to be fully present and free from the pressures and harms of phones and social media. This policy helps them restore connections and reclaim a critical period in their development. Now, 2 of our 3 feeder school districts already have phone-free bell-to-bell policies, Eureka and Roseville City School District. I reached out to their leaders and some of their board trustees as well as some teachers, and this is some of the responses that I received. From Superintendent Garcia of Roseville City School District, he said, the cell phone policy completely changed the cultures at our middle schools. Students were more engaged with each other, not their phones, during passing periods and lunches. Additionally, teachers reported fewer classroom distractions. I highly recommend. Jonathan Zackerson, RCSD board trustee, said teachers have said it was a miracle and has created a transformation on campus. There are more clubs needed, more playground equipment needed. Cammie Walker, a Roseville City School District board trustee, said that there has been literally zero downside. It's all been positive. Initially, there was some pushback from parents, but it was a relative few. Tyler Holt of the Eureka Union School District said the overall feedback has been so positive. Multiple parents have told me that they are encouraged by it. Teachers and principals were super happy about it too. They felt they were enforcing already, but the policy gave them teeth behind it. And then Dominique Groom, a teacher at Cooley Middle School, one of my daughter's teachers, said, without phones, students spent more time talking to each other during passing periods and at lunch. It helped build real social connections and cut down on isolation that comes from kids being glued to screens. We saw fewer distractions in class, which made it easier for students to focus and teachers to manage their classrooms. It was a battle before to monitor and get students to put their devices away. We also saw less bullying of kids taking pictures and videos of students and putting it on their social media feeds. That said, it wasn't without challenges, and she shares some of those challenges. We have a tremendous opportunity to piggyback on the work they have already done to acclimate the students and parents to a phone-free bell-to-bell policy. I recognize that we are discussing a different age group of students with different responsibilities. At first thought, especially for me, I will say I thought it's easiest to brush it off as an impossible ask to have them put their phones away all school day. But I think there are possibilities that we need to seriously consider. Bell-to-bell can and is being done in many other high schools around the United States, and more will continue to implement bell-to-bell policies due to their state laws. I want to gratefully acknowledge the work that Dr. Dobson and her team have done with the site councils over the past year discussing this policy before bringing it to us. My intention is not to minimize the work that has already taken place. However, the research and education surrounding phone and social media use is rapidly and constantly increasing, and I believe that many involved in the site councils probably did not or have not had significant exposure to the information that is available. That's just a personal opinion of mine. I believe the instructional time policy is very good. I think we can do remarkably better for our kids, both educationally and mentally, with a phone-free bell-to-bell policy, and that we should take the time to thoroughly explore this option. I'm not going to ask the board to adopt a bell-to-bell policy tonight, but I would like to make a motion to table the approval of board policy 5131.8 and direct staff to seek broader stakeholder input, as well as research a possible bell-to-bell policy for our district, and ask the board members to also research this before we commit to a policy.
A quick point of order. A motion to table significantly limits our ability to discuss, and when you have one member had a huge amount of time to discuss the issue, a motion to table would curtail the rest of us from being able to do that. So I think since you had an opportunity to say that, everybody should have an opportunity to give their perspectives before we entertain a motion.
I think the more perspectives, the better.
So with that, I obviously have comments.
Comments? Any comments?
Yeah.
Who would like to start?
Pete's Trump.
So I'll start. I would not in any way support bell-to-bell policy. If we were to entertain that, a year ago when staff informed us that they were starting off on this process, that would have been the time to bring this up and to have the last year's work evaluate both as we engaged our parents and our site staff. I think we have to look at this from a number of perspectives. One is student safety. We have a behavioral threat assessment policy that is built around teaching students how to observe and report. And we have a catapult system that has been used quite frequently by our students to make reports of issues of serious concern on our campuses, and they do that primarily through their cell phones. Now, some may argue that they could use their Chromebook for doing that, but taking out your Chromebook when you're in the quad at lunch to make a report of a troubling experience is completely different than picking up your phone and making a catapult report. I think we have to realize that we're not talking about elementary students or the pre-adolescent middle school students. We have kids that are 18-year-old adults on our campuses, a significant number of them. The bell-to-bell really was designed for the K-8 schools. In fact, I think the state law that initiated all this had that in mind. We have students that use their cell phones in class activities, and it's an instructional method that I know quite a number of teachers use. As you know, I'm a teacher. I do a lot of things with my students that engage them using their phones. We have QR codes available for students to access resources, mental health resources, wellness resources. They won't have the ability to do that without their phones. If we really want to prepare kids for college and career and life, then part of that is preparing them by helping them learn the appropriate usage of those phones. And really the place to do that is in the classroom with the teacher and classroom management. And I talked to a lot of teachers about this issue, both previously, before we started off on this endeavor, and then since then. And a lot of teachers make the decision no phones, and they deal with that, and we have an ability to deal with that, and other teachers choose that they're going to use that. And that's a good thing, and our policy allows for that. But telling an 18-year-old, 17-year-old student that they can't have their phone during lunch, I think that is way extending government overreach. High school students have complex schedules. My kids are involved in extracurricular, co-curricular activities, simply trying to figure out whether they have to pick up their sibling or get home to do something, or if they're in sports, our coaches communicate with our student athletes via text message and updates on what time buses are leaving for competitions. Those may change. What time the actual, practices may change. Our performing arts students use that as well, and they're working in their performance arts and how they're going to do their schedules. We've had staff spend a year on it. They've engaged stakeholders, students, teachers, parents, through the school sites councils. And you're right, these parents may not know all of those studies, and I bet there's dozens of other studies on both sides of the issue, but these parents know their kids, and they know how their kids work at school, and they know the experience they have. I tell you, with my 5 kids in school, we used our phones a lot in order to communicate. All the districts in our area have a similar policy to what we're proposing tonight. El Dorado High School, Placer Union High School, Elk Grove, Twin Rivers, Western Placer, Folsom, Cordova. I don't know of any in our area that don't allow for high school students. And again, we are talking about high school students, young adults, and some real adults. Personally, I will always fall on the side of individual and personal liberty, and I don't think that we should be infringing on it. I think it's a tool. Our job is to teach the students how to use it as a tool. I think it is a learning and instructional method that some teachers will use, and they should be able to do it. I think it's a tool that students use to get extra help when they need to through the QR codes. I think it is integral to our behavioral threat assessment policy and the use of the catapult system. So I don't believe that we should be making a change that significant this late in the process. And you know, there'll be a time to review this in the future, and perhaps that's the time to do it. I can't support that change today.
Can I ask a question? So Mel, at the school site councils, did a bell-to-bell or something similar come up? Because I know mental health comes up a lot with concerns with parents and teachers. Was it? And let's be honest, phones do tend to cause challenges in that area. Was there discussion about a bell-to-bell? What were the feedback on that?
No, this policy is the one that was been presented for last year at school site councils. And so that the feedback was for the principals to run through school site councils, get stakeholder feedback from students, staff, and parents on allowing the cell phone use, but not during instructional time. So like as Pete said, this aligns with most other districts, but so this was what was presented.
Okay.
And there was some, feedback, some tweaks that people maybe said, how about this? But the overwhelming feedback was, yes, we can live with this policy. We think it's fair.
Okay, so we don't know really if our stakeholders would prefer bell-to-bell, that they bought into this.
Obviously, our students
Okay.
would
Yes,
prefer this.
I know my daughter, please don't ruin my senior year. Yes, something along those lines. So I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe when I say stakeholders, parent side more than the kids. So we don't really know if they supported the bell-to-bell because we were focused on.
Wasn't an option presented to them.
Okay.
It was more, can we get your feedback on what you think of this particular board policy?
I have one other question. Do you have a question
ahead.
first? If we as a board accepted this policy, hypothetically the one that you proposed, but an individual school site wanted to implement a bell-to-bell, would they be allowed to do that or no? Like if a principal.
We would hope to be consistent. We try to remain consistent with, so it's a consistency throughout the district.
Okay, just wanted to.
Enrollment would significantly drop.
Sure. I just wondered if one school wanted to be slightly more restrictive, if they would have that ability to. So that's okay. That answered my question.
I just want to say, Tiffany, thank you for sharing that info. It's interesting how we've got this generation of students that basically grown up with something we could only dream of in their pockets from day one, and it's hard to understand them. But I was on site council at Oakmont this last year before I was on the board, and we piloting this. Right, you might correct that Oakmont's been piloting this policy, and we did have feedback on from the students on the site council on what you think about it, and it's very positive, and that at least from those who are on site council, that we felt more engaged during instructional time, and talking more, and teachers were the same way, totally were appreciative of it, didn't have to deal with the disruptions. And as far as like getting students used to the policy, it didn't take long before they were basically complying with it. And I think a very few numbers elevated up to that higher level where you could have to like leave your phone at home type of thing. So most students were getting to it. I mean, I'm talking to my own stakeholder, and it didn't seem to be a problem, even though they're so been so glued to their phone otherwise. And then I understand the safety issue too. I think that was an issue with parents about wanting to make sure that there's at least access somehow. I don't know what, in some of those elementary, I guess they're leaving them in the classrooms when they go to recess or something. Is that kind of how that worked?
There's different options, I believe, in Eureka and Roseville City. They're just leaving them in their backpacks.
Okay. So anyways, I think the policy has been at least piloted, been working. And it's kind of reached some of the intended purposes behind the change was to keep students engaged during that instructional time while balancing kind of their interest in being able to connect during break periods. So that's my 2 cents.
I appreciate the conversation. I just want to address a couple of things, specifically with student safety. The research shows that phones actually cause crisis situations to become worse because the phones become, as the students are, I'm not talking about the catapult system, but if there were to be an emergency situation, and I believe there was one potential emergency situation at West Park Lab within the last school year, and students were texting their parents to come get me, you need to come get me, and it spread amongst the students and parents were coming and there wasn't a situation. And so misinformation gets spread. Students do not have situational awareness during emergencies when they have their phones. They're thinking about their phone and recording, and it can also prohibit first responders from arriving. So I would think for myself as a parent, that would be my concern. Hey, I want to be able to talk with my student if there's an emergency, but the research shows that actually it's more harmful for them, for the students. Something I didn't understand is I don't see how this policy as written is much different than what we've had since 2019, because I think it was an instructional time policy before. So I was just trying to look, that was one area, and how would we, has this been what's been in the district since, well, I guess it was 2020. Because in 2020 it says students may use cell phones, smartwatches, pagers, or other mobile communication devices on campus during non-instructional time. So, and then mobile communication devices shall be turned off during instructional time. So this should have been being implemented since 2020. How will things, and we're talking about 2 different things, but how will what we're doing now change what's happening in the classrooms that we haven't already done since 2020? Would be one of my questions. What are we doing to make that change or to help schools implement that policy?
Just real quick for clarification, so we all lose track of it. On the emergencies, even with the new law, there is already law that a kid is required to be able to have their cell phone out during an emergency to communicate with their families.
They can, yes, they can have it, and
we just can't prohibit it. We have to give them immediate access to their phones. So I just wanted to make sure that part was clear, as well as if they have a doctor's note, they can use their phone in class.
Sure.
And or an IEP or 504. So I would expect a lot of those to surface in that regard. But no, just on the emergency part, I just want to make sure that was clear, because that actually came out of even back in kind of post-Columbine times where students were allowed to have their cell phones in their possession during an emergency. So just wanted to make sure that part was clear. So the rest of it, to your question, was great.
Yeah. So I guess maybe how is this new policy is written, remarkably different than the previous policy, and what would we do to improve the implementation in class time? I guess, Mel, maybe you're the one, Dr. Dawson.
I think the difference with this is that there wasn't technically a school policy or district policy that we had, yes, a board policy, but wasn't really implemented in the schools. And so I think that's when we're talking about what Bill was talking about as far as piloting in Oakmont, that's what was really, we were trying to do, to actually make sure we were following these policies by writing out an actual step-by-step policy that the school can implement. Here are the consequences for not following the policy, making sure that parents, everyone understands. So that's, they're two different things really. It's how the school can implement it versus the board policy.
And maybe I can clarify, correct me if I'm wrong, but we also did this to comply with the provisions of the law that says you'll have a stakeholder outreach process. So we had a policy that was a policy, but in order to comply with the state law, we had a process that we had to go through. And through that process, the policy was tweaked and changed to get what we have. Am I correct in that? No, okay. And then, yeah, and I don't think that we've had significant problems on our campuses with the phones because of the policy. We were just really coming in line with state law.
Yeah, and then just the last one that stood out to me, because it's kind of come up, is even with the new law or even the policy, teachers and our administrators can still give kids permission to use it in class. Instructionally, for any educational instruction or activities. So teachers can still, if they wanted to, even in Bell, students can pull their phones out for instructional or educational activities, which is always a challenge with any of these policies. Teacher A, B, and C will implement it differently. Which is why all these policies, and they've been tried for a long time now, that's usually the challenge, is the fidelity to implementation policy. But I just want to make sure that part was out there too, that teachers can still ask the kids to pull them out for instructional activities.
Well, and to that point, students would still, a bell-to-bell policy, they still have the phone in their possession. They never lose the phone out of their possession. So they still have it in case of emergency. They still have it if a teacher wants to use it for classroom instruction. It just, the research shows it's transformational to a campus. So I just wanted to share that information as a way to ask if we could fully consider a bell-to-bell policy. I think the potential positives are so good that it's worth looking into.
Thoughts, questions? I appreciate all your time and work and passion spent on it. My 8th grader is one of the students with the no cell phone policy, no watch, no phone, and he's acclimated to it. It has challenges at times, but he's getting used to it. Whereas, Roseville High, my 2 had their phones, but it was also kind of a non-issue. Certain classrooms, like ceramics, for example, they have to put their phones in like those little Tupperwares where the lids kind of lock shut, because they don't want their phones out during ceramics. But sometimes during ceramics, they needed to have a photo of whatever it is they're trying to make, right? And so those days, I would tell Jeremiah, take a couple pictures of whatever you're making because I want to see it, right? So I'm a bad influence. But depending on the class, Levi's and Mr. Ritter's media marketing, and they would need their phones. He would need to take photos of things at home on his phone to be able to make a slideshow and move it to his Chromebook, and all that to say, I don't ever feel like they abused the use of their phones, and the teachers were already sort of implementing a by-class structure that felt appropriate for that class. And there is that part of me where, I'm old enough to remember back in high school where cell phones weren't even a thing. And I was able to do my job and go to school and all the things without a phone. But life was just different then. You know, for my oldest son, his job schedule's online. For my new son entering high school, the water polo coach is sending out Remind app to the student. You know, so I just feel like life is a little bit different. Whereas when we were, you know, in high school, we didn't need phones because nothing was technology. So I just think it would be tricky to do, but I do completely appreciate all of your thoughts.
So Heidi, when I was in high school, we still had a rotary phone in my house.
Same.
Great.
So did I. I had an 8-track player in my car.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth,
That would work.
Tiffany. I think what I'm reading is, like, or listening to is the heart is truly, we are concerned. We always, you always hear about concern about the state of our kids these days and wanting connection and feeling isolated and can, by removing a phone at lunch where they have to talk to each other and make new friends and maybe join a club and figure out what else to do other than stare at the screen and then immediately let them become isolated. Because I know it's hard if you don't know who to hang out with, especially with our 2 lunches. 2 lunch is terrible for some high schoolers because they don't get their friends, and then now they're trying to figure out who they're going to sit with, and so that phone is okay, in a bad way. It's critical in some ways, but then it also stops them from making new friends. And so we can say that this instructional system, and I don't know where I come down on this either. So I could go either way, but I feel like we would be, you hear from public comments, we always want to talk about how our kids are struggling and how can we improve mental health, and then we have this opportunity, and yet we didn't talk about whether we could take an opportunity to even do anything different with the phones. And that's where I'm like, oh, and I don't know, did I overlook something in the past year? Did we have it on the agenda of how we directed, or did it just happen? I don't know, and I'm sorry if I fell short. I almost wonder, okay, we have this policy, and then do we just have some kind of a plea where, how about no phone Fridays, or just coming up some kind of culturally, can we work on something to just encourage kids to do something different? Because last week I ran across, there's an article that Del Orio's softball team went a month without a phone because they were doing a fundraiser. And you read the article about just how it was hard, but it was transformative, and it's a shame that we didn't talk about it more. And forgive me if that was my fault and just letting it go, but I'm with you on feeling sad, or sad's the wrong word. I'm with you on feeling disappointed that if we just pass it and just say, well, we'll review it in a few years. That's where I'm lost, because we should be trying to help our students do better. I should go without a phone for some amount of time, you know. Anyway, so.
Thank you so much, Marla. And to be clear, a phone-free bell-to-bell doesn't mean you can never touch your phone. They can get it out in emergency. They can get it out with their teachers. I realize they can get it out at the end of school and see if their mom has changed their pickup time, or if their school or if their work schedule has changed. But I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was really important, obviously. Mel, could you tell us do you know yet how we're going to implement this? Just the instructional time policy throughout the district? What are the plans, and what would we need to do financially to support the instructional class time policy, so that, is it getting caddies in each of the rooms? How will that go?
The plan has been to follow the Oakmont High School personal device policy that was piloted in development, and the principals seem to like that policy. Oakmont has praised it, said that it's been great and it's been reasonable to follow. As far as the, infraction 1, what happens, infraction 2, parents have been great in understanding that phones should be put away during class time. unless the teacher asks to use it or that, kids have permission to use it. But we've had a few schools that have already implemented, Oakmont being one, Independence and Adelante, and I think there might be one more, but everybody else is planning on implementing this beginning of next school year.
And is it each classroom to themselves, how they choose to do that? Or are we asking them to have a caddy or have a Tupperware box or?
Teacher discretion, because if you have the cell phones in a caddy and they get stolen, then we are responsible for that. So a lot of teachers don't want to do that because now you are responsible for watching those caddies. And we do have to warn teachers that if they are collecting the cell phones, then we could be financially responsible.
And how are we going to have teacher buy-in on being consistent? Not, okay, this classroom, oh, Mr. Constant, he doesn't make us follow this policy, I can get my phone out, but Mrs. Coleman, she's really hardcore about it. I mean,
it's the responsibility of the site administration and working with their leadership teams to be able to talk about why we need to do this. Most teachers are completely on board because it does allow some flexibilities for the teachers. If I want to use it to play a game with my students that's educational, then I can do it. But otherwise, we all buy in that the cell phones are put away during my instructional time. So it's education based on the site administrators being able to communicate with all of their teachers on site.
And Tiffany, just kind of to that point at Oakmont, at back to school night, when we were going around to all of our meeting with all the teachers, they were all sharing, hey, we're implementing this policy this year. It's kind of like bringing the parents in as a stakeholder group too to help back them up. But it was pretty clear what it's going to be moving forward, and I think that was important right from the beginning.
If I could just, when we look at here, it talks about review the policy at least once every 5 years. Since it sounds like we've got sites ready to go, I mean, I think we'd be good. Let's see what it looks like district-wide for a year, and then come back and see if it's working, if it needs to be elevated to a bell-to-bell, or no phone Friday, or something. Because I think it will continue to evolve. It will continue to evolve, and we know with technology, what that could look like. Because the other side of it is the phones are away, but if you have a MacBook, your phone and text messages come on your screen, so does your FaceTime. And then, so then they just use their devices as their extended phone. But that's the sad part when we do these things. We just make them more innovative, critical thinkers and problem solvers. But it sounds like if we could at least initiate this year to see what that will look like with Oakmont's pilot. And I've heard good things from Principal Bourgeon as well, that it seems to work. And teachers have expressed to me the same thing. When I did my rounds meeting with teachers this year, they all talk about a cell phone policy, and they all either doing the same or something similar to Oakmont, and they really enjoy it. It gives them the cover if they want to go really strict, and it also gives them the flexibility if they do utilize it for classroom instruction. And they like that part of it. They were a little worried of too strict because then they have to manage it and they don't want to be the managers of that. It sets up a different dynamic in the relationship with the teacher, and some are not really wanting to do that yet. But I think this could be a good place to start, at least to try to do something consistent across the district. And then I think Mel and her team, she can continue to review, or at least with their sites, continue to review with site council to see how it's going, collect feedback from RSCA, maybe collect some feedback, be it either through the LCAP survey or its own intentional survey that Tony can create for us, on how to survey parents beyond the site councils and their thoughts on it as well. And then maybe have a comprehensive set of information come this time next year to go, is it working? Is it achieving what the board would like to see? Are we seeing some decreases in some dependencies? And are we seeing increases in attentive behavior in a classroom? So I think we're all kind of chasing the same thing, and I think we all want this better environment. I think we all can agree the phones can be detrimental at times. And so, again, just since the timing we're at, it sounds like our principals are ready to implement
I think this would be a good time, because they're gonna probably, I mean, even if we went and did the study, they're gonna implement anyways. So it'd be good to have a year to see what that looks like. And then, who knows, it may need to be more restrictive, and maybe the data, the feedback, the teachers, the kids, the parents, bring that to us. And it's just my thoughts on it, especially after hearing our principals are all lined up, getting ready to do the Oakmont pilot. So just my
Well, and
thoughts.
we have this perfect opportunity where our incoming 8th graders are already used to a no cell phone policy. So they're going to be the perfect group to have an LCAP forum with and see, you know, maybe we survey them, you know, right when they get there, how was 8th grade? You know, what's your mood? Kind of a little assessment, and then in a year, check back in with them, or at the 6-month mark, check back in with them. Because we're going to have students who are going from what you're proposing to something a little bit different, and we can kind of analyze that a little bit. So maybe we agree to look at this policy in 1 year and maybe, you know, look at it. Do we need to change it? Is it working?
So could we say a motion to approve 5131.8, the mobile communication device policy as written, with a commitment that through the Student Services Department, they'll continue to look at it bell to bell, and we'll come back and formally review it a year from now, or whatever, 6 months from now?
Was that actually a motion?
Yes, it
Okay.
was. That was actually a motion.
I'll second that, but I would just say that I think there should be a check-in with the board maybe a couple months before, so we can get a sense of how far and how much we want staff to do. I just always worry about staff workload. I don't want to do this after they've just done an entire year and then say, okay, and now during this year, while you're implementing it, we want you to start this whole new process and build all this stuff. So I'd like to at least have a check-in to see how's it working before we give them direction, whether we want them to jump into something else or not. And so if that's the intent of the motion, then I'm fine. If not, I'd ask for just a minor adjustment to fit that.
Well, I think the more communication, the better. So, my real purpose is the health of the students. And it's not just instructional time, it's passing period and lunch is when they're on social media, which are the addictive apps, which cause the mental health problems. And if we can do something while they're on campus to help with that, we should, just like we do with other addictive and harmful behaviors. So I would like to continue to look into it and have us as board, I go forward with the policy as is now, but just encourage us as a board to continue to study the issue and then to check in with student services regularly about it with a solid update.
And the only other thing that I would add is I just want to make sure that all the sites implement the same, so we don't get disparities between sites. That's going to be important for us to really understand if it works.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Is everyone clear on what the motion is?
I think it stopped with Pete's friendly second amendment, I guess. I think so.
Yes. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right. Motion carries 5-0. Just to check in, it is 7:34. Do you want to keep going to your next one?
My second one is fast.
Quick. Okay.
If you want to do it.
Yep, let's go for it.
6142.9 for the history, social science instruction. I'd like to make a motion, I hope I do this correctly, to strike in the first paragraph the change as well as to establish a foundation for the appreciation of different ethnicities and the wise use of natural resources. I'd like to strike that out of the revision because I believe that's implied within part 1 and 2 of paragraph 3 and just becomes more words and more confusion. And then I'd like to move the phrase, "the responsible management of personal finance," to the end of paragraph 1 for clarity. So the revised first paragraph of policy 6142.94 would be, "The Board of Trustees believes that the study of history and other social sciences is essential to prepare students to engage in responsible citizenship, comprehend complex global interrelationships, and understand the vital connections among the past, present, and future. The district's history social science education program includes, at appropriate grade levels, instruction in American and world history, geography, economics, political science, anthropology, psychology, sociology, and the responsible management of personal finance."
I'm sorry, I'm looking for the redundancy. Where was the redundancy?
I feel like in paragraph, let me find my, paragraph 3, numbers 1 and 2, trying to find my policy, already reflect that. I don't see the value in including "as well as to establish a foundation for the appreciation of different ethnicities, the wise use of natural resources." And let me find my, just look it up here.
I see it, I guess I also see a reference in paragraph 4, maybe you were referring to, where it says appreciate cultural diversity and different points of view while also developing an understanding of commonalities and collective experiences. Is that?
Yes, thank you. Is that? Let me pull it up.
It goes on.
In paragraph 3, period 1, or section 1, knowledge and cultural understanding, including historical, ethical, cultural, geographic, economic, and socio-political literacy. Yeah, and number 2, democratic understanding of civic values, including an understanding of national identity, constitutional heritage, and individual civic values, rights, and responsibilities. So I just think that it's already in there, it's inherent in there, and I don't think it adds value.
Just to clarify, this was a CSBA recommended change, policy committee? Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were asking staff. I'd have to ask them. I think it's from the model policy.
That's correct. It's, Bill, it is from CSBA. It's a recommendation from CSBA.
So I don't think we saw the kind of reason for the update. Is it tied to what current law is? Because that's typically what changes are for.
Right. It is tied to AB 2927 with the codified language into adopting ethnic studies and personal finance into graduation requirements, beginning in the class of 2030 for ethnic studies and 2031 for personal finance.
And I'd also say the larger part was the change in law that requires the workplace readiness week, and that changed in the law. So there was the clarification there. That's the top paragraph on page 2.
I'm not asking for any changes to that.
No, just Tony's
Yeah.
asking what prompted the changes.
Oh, thank you.
And just a little picky editing, 1 through 4, only 4 has a period at the end of the sentence, so they should either all be periods or no periods.
We'll make that change. We also adopt the grammatical recommendation from CSBA. So that is a CSBA error, but we can start with period.
So I've made that motion to strike "as well as to establish a foundation for the appreciation of different ethnicities, comma, the wise use of natural resources," and then to move "the responsible management of personal finance" to the end of paragraph 1 for clarity.
All right. Any questions, comments, thoughts?
Well, there's been just a motion, right? There hasn't been a second. So according to Pete, we can't have discussion.
I'll second for discussion.
I think that's a silly rule. We're going to talk about that. But I think there's a difference between a statement of we're establishing a foundation for appreciation of different ethnicities versus we're gonna ensure that our curriculum at each grade level is designed with instruction to develop student achievement in the areas, those categories. I think those, to me, fundamentally different. One's implementation of curriculum tied to that, but coming out and saying we're establishing a foundation for appreciation, I think is a more, is a profound statement, important statement.
I think it's clunky. I think, I don't know how much I want to wordsmith it, but, so you're saying this is added because of our introduction of the requirement of ethnic studies and personal finance, and yet we also have a wise use of natural resources? Is that also part of?
Yeah, in the CSBA manual, I couldn't ascertain explicitly the cause and the reasons for why CSBA recommends the wise use of natural resources. I don't know if that is part of the phrase, as well as establish a foundation for the appreciation of different ethnicities, or part of the responsible management of personal finance. So I would defer to the board.
I'm not sure why we wouldn't want students to understand the wise use of natural resources. I mean, conservation.
I'm not saying we don't, I'm just saying, I think it's in number 2, our values, rights, and responsibilities. I don't think we can list every single thing that of course we want them to understand that and 100 other things, but we don't list every single one of those things in the policy.
See, I think it would make more sense to add appreciation of different ethnicities in section 2. If we want to build out, or even maybe add an additional number 5, that would make more sense to me than making a first paragraph, than keeping it in the first paragraph. I don't have a problem with having that language.
Well,
I realize it's.
I think it's looks like it's built in like more of an introductory statement of what this policy is about, and then it seems to, the categories seem to be tied to what that curriculum is ultimately implementing as it gets into it. I mean, obviously it's not getting into great detail. That's what the curriculum review is for. I mean, the policy committee reviewed this, made a recommendation moving forward.
I think we're also okay to listen to feedback, but I'm okay if we move some of this into the 1, 2, or 3 side. If we want to just change the language and put it in foundation for appreciation of different ethnicities in number 2.
I think the worst thing we can do is wordsmith something on the
I'm
dais.
fly. I'm on the fly. I realize, and I'm.
I tend to agree with Bill. That first paragraph is just laying a foundation for the specifics that are involved.
Well, let's take a vote then on my motion.
Can I ask what we're voting on? Are you voting on the changes that you just?
Well, I think we need
to.
to. I made a motion for those changes and it was seconded, so I think we need to take a vote on that motion.
Okay, is everybody clear what the motion was and the changes? All right, let's take a vote then. Trustee Constant.
Bill?
Trustee Coleman.
Yes.
Trustee Hall is a no.
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 Okay.
I'll make a motion now that we approve the policy as presented.
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second to approve the policy as is. Trustee Constant.
Yes.
Trustee Coleman.
No.
Trustee Hall, yes. Trustee Franz.
Yes.
And Trustee Schutz.
Yes.
All right.
I said that was gonna be quick, but I know.
Well, that's okay. That's all right. Okay, we are going to move along then to the last one. Trustee Schutz wanted to pull 0415.
Thank you. So this was included on the consent agenda as a a list of policies that were, including recommended changes set forth from CSBA. This particular policy was not included with the board committee review, correct? So I guess my question is, it's on the consent agendas, which is typically reserved for routine in nature, not typically requiring discussion. I guess how did this get on the consent agenda is my question.
The board has previously asked for this to come multiple times, and it just never made it into the policy review. So I'm not speaking for staff, but I know that the board over the last 3 years has asked multiple times for this to come for rescission, almost said rescission, and it just finally got it.
So I guess my question still is, who asked for it to be?
I did.
You did, okay.
I did.
Was there a reason for requesting?
Yes, absolutely. My issue with this particular policy, and first of all, I have also been hearing for the last 3.5 years that we need to do something about this policy. My issue with it, this verbiage that we have of equity in the first paragraph, the last section, I am completely supportive of providing equal opportunities to all students. And sometimes we have to provide more support to some students rather than others, 100%. My issue with the term equity that has evolved over the last several years is it also includes resulting outcomes. And so we have in the first paragraph, we require a commitment to equity and opportunities provided to students and resulting outcomes. And throughout this verbiage, this is about making sure our students have equal outcomes. And before I was on the board, parent, 3.5 years ago, we had the book Grading for Equity on a number of teachers' desks, which parents brought to the attention of the board. I might have even spoken about it. I don't know. I don't recall. If you follow the news, that was trying to be implemented in San Francisco recently. And honestly, with this policy in place, whoever was doing that, well in their realm of very reasonable to do that with this policy. Again, as a parent before I was on the board, at Grant Bay High School, we lost AP Chem, Honors Spanish 4, and Honors French. I asked the administrator why, and in a school site council meeting, and that administrator told me, because of equity, because it's not fair that other schools don't have these classes. And this policy, again, well in that person's realm to make these decisions based on this policy. I mean, I can dig through it. We have redundant policies that are very supportive of all students, and I can read all the policies for it. So I don't feel like we are losing any programs. We are losing a philosophical idea in this that says that our students will have equal outcomes, because we cannot guarantee that. Instead, we should be providing all of the services that kids need, and then they need to work hard and they need to persevere and we need to support them with that. And some kids are going to succeed more than others, whatever that looks like, but that doesn't mean they're not successful. It's just success looks different. And that's why after 3.5 years, we just need to pull this policy.
And I would add, prior discussions that asked to bring it were that we never define the word equity, and that leads to what Marla was discussing. And one of the things that I did when I was involved in one of the CSBA discussions where they get all the school boards of the state, it was interesting to find out that there was only 2 schools in the entire state that were on the call that had this policy. And it was because of that issue and the philosophical nature versus the action. And reiterating some of Marla's statements, if you look through the other portions of our board policies and the administrative regulations, they ensure that we provide the equal opportunity portion. So that discussion, as I said, has been going on for quite a while. It started and something derails it because the issue of the day comes up and back and forth.
I guess I just have issue with this being couched in, I guess, wedged into a consent agenda when it's typically, well, this consent agenda for policies has been going through the committee. And typically when it's something that a board member asks to be put on the agenda, it's called out as a separate action agenda item.
That's actually not been the practice of the board. The practice has been that policies have always been put, at least for the last 2 years, on consent, and then
Even if it's a board call for a change?
And the ability to pull. The only time that we've had them is if it is discussing a new policy where we want to get a sense of the board and get community input before we give direction to have a policy drafted. So that's been our board practice.
So when you're talking about removing a policy completely without any revisions, putting it on a consent agenda during June when we don't have anybody here, it raises concern for me that we're not going to have really any real feedback on this complete elimination of a policy. And the fact that I don't think there was really, obviously you've been dealing with it 5 years. What's the urgency in needing to bring it today when we have a policy that has the president consider with administration, but it's something that we need to bring back on a very busy agenda as it is meeting. You know, there's other more important business that we need to take care of. That you've had this policy for 5 years and you come back.
And I was not trying to hide this at all. Honestly, when I did not know this was an optional policy. For 3.5 years, I thought we had to rework this, which is why it took 3.5 years to get any work done. And when I recently learned this was an optional policy, this is a philosophical idea, I said I would like to rescind it. And I didn't personally tell anyone where to put it. I just wanted it on the agenda. I was not trying to hide anything. Happy to talk about it.
Okay. Well, no one's here, or during summer break. So I just think the optics and that being transparent as a board, trying to push something through, maybe because another district in there is. And I know you had 2 that were you mentioned 2 on your call. I think every district in our area have this policy. Some have rescinded it, some have not. And I'm concerned, I know we've had a number of comments by email about this, about the redundancy, and how, well, who cares if it's redundant? It's a message.
Well, but not all of this is redundant. This idea of equal outcomes,
Okay.
and we're making decisions to have
Okay.
equal outcomes, that's the problem. I personally, again, as a parent, saw my own school with my own kids affected by this policy.
And we've got a very diverse student population at all
This
our
has nothing
sites,
to do-
some
this
more
has
than
nothing to do
others.
with diversity. This is equal outcomes.
I'm reading okay, that aside, what message are you going to are you portraying to students throughout our district when you're saying, hey, we're just going to remove this, when we have a clear statement that says, addressing the needs of the most marginalized learners requires recognition of the inherent value of diversity and acknowledgement that educational excellence requires a commitment to equity and the opportunities that are provided. If you have a concern with outcomes, eliminate that part. But my concern is about
It's throughout this whole thing.
Well, and I would say, we have been unable to define equity, and when we have not defined equity and there's confusion amongst everybody in the district and even members of the board, that's the problem. So, like I say, the board has asked for this multiple times.
a board without me on it, right?
True.
And I think that I completely hear what you're saying. And if we were eliminating this policy and none of these items were somewhere else, then yes, I could see that would be concerning if we didn't have all of these other things listed in which I know you have.
I have.
Those policies written down.
Yes.
I do not. I've been looking through it too. Then yes, that I could see would be problematic. I was in the same boat. I didn't realize this was all adopted before any of us were here. And we worked with how do we, define this? How do we rearrange this? Not knowing, at least me, I didn't know that it was an optional policy. I had no idea. And so, anyway, that's all.
A couple of thoughts. John, is there any practical application of this policy? What is the practical application within our district of having this policy?
Yeah, it's been said, I mean, this is more of a philosophical statement for the board. All of this already exists in other policy and what we do at our school sites. All of our students have access to all of our programs. They all have the support to be successful in all of the programs. All of our sites do various different things within their school plans, within our policies, to address the diversity on their campuses. It's always interesting to me because as the former principal of Antelope, we did all of this before there was ever an existing policy. And so all of this exists on our campus, which is where it's supposed to be anyways, not in here. So all of our kids have access to this. All of our principals, site administration embrace the various versions of diversity on their campus, spiritually, ethnically, racially, you name it. You know, there's so much support for our students and the communities where their schools reside. We live this more than just this philosophical statement on our school sites.
And I appreciate that, but I do see disparities throughout our district. And I know as a board, we've championed to try and make our sites have the same resources available so that they have, if you go to any one of our sites, you'll be able to get the similar resources. And I just have a strong concern that as a board coming out publicly saying bye-bye with our equity policy, that it just is going to send a message to so many of our student populations that are feeling vulnerable and marginalized, and their parents. So that's my 2 cents. I'm definitely going to vote against it, in case you didn't guess.
I personally would like to rescind the policy. I do think it's redundant. I do think we have all of this elsewhere. I don't think it's helpful. At the same time, I appreciate what Bill was saying, and it just kind of appeared on our consent agenda, and it wasn't on the board policy agenda. So there's been, I would say, in our desire to follow through on our board expectations to be transparent, it might be better to be more transparent about it.
I'm sorry, I talked to my superintendent and said I'd like to see it happen, and
Yeah.
this is when it showed up. I didn't tell him which meeting. I appreciate that he was just proactive and got on the meeting.
Yeah.
So I make a motion to rescind policy 0415.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have to do roll call since it was on consent? Or now we pulled it? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No.
And one opposed. All right, so we have no worries, 4-1 on 0415. Okay. I was going to do exactly what Trustee Constant just went to go do, so would you be opposed to a 5-minute break? Just stretch, grab water, grab a cookie? Okay, we'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, it looks like everybody is back, and so we will get back on to schedule here. Item 7.1. Our first item in action matters, the approval of the LCAP plan. We are going to hear from Dr. Tu.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Heidi. So tonight we have the LCAP in front of you. Looking for action, you heard our presentation in the last Board of Education meeting, and just as a reminder, this is the second year of our 3-year LCAP's entirety, and it's 3-year submission that we are looking for your approval, as well as we'll be submitting to our Placer County Office of Education.
I'll make a motion to approve the local control accountability plan.
I'll second.
Before we take a vote, I just want to say thank you for everyone who put this together. That's a monumental task. I always find it's always an interesting read, at least in the summary. general information portion to show, our breakdown of our district by different student populations and languages spoken. I think it's amazing what a diverse group we serve. So thank you for all your support.
Yes, thank you. I know it's lots of time and work. We appreciate it. Did I hear a motion in a second already?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries 5-0. LCAP approved. Thank you. All right, next we go to 7.2, our budget adoption.
Yes.
Mr. Landon.
Yes, so this is the tentative budget being recommended for adoption, contains the same financials that were presented on May 27th. Staff recommends approval of our adopted budget for 25-26.
Any questions? No, motion?
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Joe. We love that you love this. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the budget. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries 5-0, budget adoption for 25-26. Moving on to 7.3, our public disclosure of our 25-26 CSEA settlement agreement.
Yes, this is similar to what we did for the non-represented as well as RCA groups. And so this is the certification with CSEA of the 2.3% salary increase. And staff recommends approval of this ratification of this agreement and certifying that we can pay for it.
I would like to make a motion that we ratify the fiscal year 2025-26 CSEA settlement agreement and authorize the execution of certification number 2 of the disclosure of collective bargaining agreement with CSEA, Chapter 459.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. All right, 7.3, motion carries. I'm not going to read all that back, Mr. Constant. We will go right on to 7.4. So we have a resolution number 2512.
Yes, this is Education Code 44263 states that a teacher with their consent may be authorized by the governing board to teach a single subject class if they have 18 semester hours of coursework or 9 semester hours of upper division graduate work. Staff has verified that Roseville High School teacher Paul Stewart meets this requirement. He's also volunteered. We bring Mr. Stewart in every year. He has a multiple subject that allows him to teach up to 9th grade curriculum and only as high as 9th graders. But many of his classes have sophomores, juniors, and seniors, so this authorization allows him to teach that integrated Math 1 and Math Lab to those upperclassmen. Staff recommends approval of or adoption of Resolution 2512.
My son had Mr. Stewart and is a big fan. Any motion?
I'll move adoption of the resolution 2512.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote on this one. Trustee Constant,
Yep.
Trustee Coleman.
Yes.
Hall, yes. Franz.
Yes.
Schutz.
Yes.
All right, motion carries 5-0, or resolution passes 5-0. 7.5, DSS West, substitute staff placement.
Yes, so staff is requesting board approval to enter into a 1-year contract agreement with ESS, which is Educational Support Services, to provide classified substitute services for the school district beginning with the next school year, 25-26 school year. ESS is a highly respected company responsible for providing comprehensive management of classified substitute-related needs. The staff is asking to enter a 1-year agreement with ESS to increase our fill rates of our vacancies created by classified employee absences, especially in areas like paraeducator, vocational school nurse. And a copy of the contract as well as an executive summary were provided to the board. They were attached. And staff recommends approval of a one-year contract agreement with ESS.
I just have a question. Is that, you can still take regular substitutes, or you have to get all your substitutes through ESS?
We have to get all of our classified substitutes. So we'll still have our teacher subs, our certificated subs will still be run through our office. But we have a difficult time finding classified subs often. And our fill rates, especially like for paraeducators, is like under 10%. And so with ESS, they do this recruitment, they do the onboarding, they do the training. The closest school district that works with ESS is Folsom Cordova, and they entered into a contract with them this year. And they saw their fill rates double and sometimes triple for some of these positions. They pay subs on a weekly basis. They offer retirement and medical and things like that we're just not able to do. We have a small pool of classified subs, like in nutrition services and with some of our custodial positions, but this will allow us to expand that, and they'll hire our current subs, so they'll just transition to ESS, and if by chance we do not continue with the agreement, we'll have the ability to bring them back. ESS has no problem with that.
And if this passes, you'll just communicate that with our current pool of subs so they can get right on that, get connected to ESS.
Yes, that's like the first step is to notify them of this transition and let them know that they have the opportunity to move over to ESS. And we've been very impressed by their staff so far and professionalism.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Make a motion to approve substitute staff placement agreement with ESS West LLC effective June 10, 2025.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
What's that?
It's a resolution.
Oh, 7.5 is a resolution? I don't think so.
No, I'm reading the wrong one, sorry.
Okay, I think the next one might be. Okay, so 7.5 passes 5-0. Now we are on to a resolution, public hearing, 8.1, resolution number 2511. Is that you, Joe?
Yep. The purpose of this is to seek adoption of Resolution 2511, which allows for intra-fund transfers. Essentially, the only area we need this in is in the general fund. Typically, we have a couple months where we're waiting for property taxes to come in and get transferred over to us, where we have cash flow issues. And so this allows us to transfer funds just for a few months while we wait for those cash flow issues. So most districts have needs like this, and we typically, we usually pass this resolution each year, so we have that ability. So staff recommends, I believe that, yeah, this requires a public hearing, and then staff would recommend approval of this resolution.
Do we have anyone here to speak to the public hearing? Hearing is
first.
okay. Public hearing has been opened.
Motion to close public hearing.
Come on, speak. No? Okay, motion to close, second to close the public hearing. And did someone make a motion to adopt the resolution?
Put the vote on the close first, and then take a quick vote on the
Well,
close.
we have to vote to close. Okay, all those in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
All right. Now do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion on resolution 2511.
I'll second.
Excellent. Okay, roll call vote to approve and adopt our resolution. Trustee Constant?
Yes.
Trustee Coleman?
Yes.
Heidi, yes. Marla France?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Resolution passes 5-0. And we are on to staff reports, informational items. 9.1, LCAP, local indicators.
Yeah, Seema's going to come up and give us a brief review of our report on the LCAP local indicators.
Hi, Amy.
So I'm here tonight to provide you an informational item regarding our local indicators. These are data points that the CDE uses to measure our progress. We use these indicators for the LCAP, and they're also reported onto our dashboard. They are self-reported. The things that we look at are parent and family engagement, access to board course study, school climate and culture, and ensuring that we have appropriately assigned teachers in the classroom as well. And so this is just an informational item. No action is needed. This will be submitted to the Placer County Office of Education as well, along with our LCAP, and will be reported onto our dashboard with our LCAP.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, 9.2, it's part of our ongoing boundary discussion study session. I believe we have a presentation from Mr. Landon.
Yes, you're going to get all three of us actually. Mel,
Ooh,
two,
trifecta.
as well as myself. So I'm going to start us off. I've got a pretty quick, more of like recap information, but then I'll pass it on to Dr. Harris. All right, so this is our next discussion about boundaries. We've had a few meetings, and so we've got some additional information to share with the board today. Just to start us off, bring up our board expectations. Really don't want to talk about, we read through them earlier, but just wanted to also put that as the forefront of our minds, the expectations that the board has as we move forward. So I'm going to talk a little bit just about school capacity and our enrollment data. Just as a reminder, this is our adopted attendance boundaries that was recently adjusted. You can see on that orange that was created when we, as well as the removal of Oakmont Island from that light blue to pink. And so I wanted to put this in the packet so you still have that as a reference point. This was something we talked about a little bit, and I wanted to put it at least in writing, some of their current estimates of our site capacity. One thing I'll reference is both Antelope and West Park, more so West Park, but to a degree Antelope were built with the intention of some sharing of classrooms, so they have some collaboration spaces. So what that means is when you want to go to the capacity, you have a little less wiggle room when you don't have a collaboration space of where you can put teachers. At the other sites, if we get in a pinch and we get a little bit above enrollment, we can ask teachers to teach on to share classrooms. You can utilize classrooms a little bit more. But without that, you would have to, so I just wanted to reference that. But so for the numbers, you can see Antelope at about 1,900. Granite Bay and Wood Creek are pretty similar at about 2,200. Oakmont, I kind of put in a range because we're about to undergo a new project at Oakmont High School. So right now we're at about 1,600. Depending on what we build in the new project, depending how many portables we may have to remove, that's why I put a little bit of a range. We have had Oakmont at about 2,200, 2,300 students, but we had a lot more portables that we've since removed. And so some of the sites have the capacity to have additional portables, some it's a little trickier. Roseville, the estimate I put in there, about 1,900 is after the completion of the project that we're undergoing right now. Currently, their capacity is probably around like the 1,500, 1,600, but once that building is completed, I believe it'll be around 1,900. West Park, you see that range, 2,900 to 3,400. The capacity currently is around 2,900, but once we complete another classroom building and the additional performing arts theater, we may have some additional spaces there. My estimate is up to 3,400. And these are not taking into account other potential capacity limits such as parking lots, traffic, the cafeteria. So this is just to kind of give you just a starting point. And the last piece I wanted to go over again before I turn it over is these are our current enrollment projections, a slight update as we've as we've gotten enrollments for 25-26. We made some small changes, but still we're roughly looking at the same issue we had before. Based on the recent change, the red areas in 2031, 32 are at Roseville High School, West Park, and Wood Creek. As you see the numbers numbers there. So those are some of the issues that we foresee in the future. Right now, for the next couple of years, we look like we have the capacity to meet our needs. But we have some issues in the future that we're going to have to address.
Quick question.
Yep.
On that, does this include the inter-district transfers also?
Yes, this includes essentially what we have currently and our current inter-district.
Which I've seen is what, 1070, so it's
Yeah,
a
Yeah, so we
thousand-ish.
gain about, and so it's assuming that stays kind of roughly the same number. So what we did find is the number, particularly at Antelope High School, since we closed Antelope High School this year, and that number has dropped quite a bit. Originally in 25-26, we were projecting around 1950, but we closed transfers, and so that number next year is projected to 1833, and that really reduced the projections going forward. So some sites we have a little, depending on any types of policy changes, could have an impact. Any other questions before I turn it over to Dr. Karras as she goes over programs of study?
All right, good evening again. So at the request of our board, we in Education Services, we prepared for you a study of the various programs that exist in all of our schools. But first, it's important for us to have a common understanding of the term program. So programs are broad and inclusive, and they do comprise of a different number of courses within said program. So generally speaking, we have our standard educational programs, such as our college prep courses. We also have our CTE program, which have programs of study, or also more commonly known as pathways, CTE pathways. And then we also have our International Baccalaureate program, our Advanced Placement program, also known as AP program, our Dual Enrollment program, also known as DE, and then of course our Special Education program. For the next few slides, you're going to see how we have organized our slides by programs, by site, for your pleasure. And then each site will have approximately 2 slides each detailing our CTE program of study or pathways, AP courses, which of course, as you know, is a program, IB courses for the schools that have IB, and added courses for the one school that has added, DE courses, and special education. So with this first slide, you will see, starting with Antelope, Antelope has 8 CTE programs of study, which I'm going to use the term pathway moving forward. So Antelope has 8 CTE pathways. Each CTE pathway comprise of either 3 or 4 courses, including an introductory course, sometimes 1 or 2 concentrator courses, and then concludes with a final capstone course. In addition, we've added enrollment and capstone completion data for you at the far right. The data to the right starts with our 24-25 academic year enrollment, and then it concludes with that second column on the right with the numbers of students who have completed that pathway. So for example, if you'll follow with me here, the 4th pathway down is our PLTW Biomedical Science CTE pathway at Antelope, which has 4 courses. Again, with the introductory, PLGW Biomedical Sciences actually has 2 concentrator courses, and then of course it concludes with a capstone course. And then following all the way to the right, for the 24-25 academic year, we had 376 students enrolled in the biomedical science pathway at Antelope, with 67 students completing that pathway. It's important for all of us to know that all of our students in grades 9 to 12 can enroll in any of these CTE pathways. However, our school professionals do guide our students with their 4-year plan to typically complete their pathway in their upper grades year. So typically junior or senior year. However, most of our students, if not over 75% of our students, complete their pathway in their senior year. Thus, you see that number is much, much smaller. This next slide offers for you all of the courses by the AP program at Antelope, all of our course offerings by the DE program at Antelope, and all of our special education courses for our special education program at Antelope. This next slide details for you our Granite Bay academic offerings. So again, Granite Bay, as you see, has 6 CTE pathways. Again, each pathway comprised of an introductory course, concentrator course, and a final capstone course. The data to the right highlights for you exactly what I shared with Antelope, giving you enrollment data for 24-25, and then the completion data for that particular pathway at the far right.
Quick question, I'm sorry, for the completion data, that's not just seniors though, that could be a junior that's finishing the.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, correct. I want to say it's probably on 2 hands, we may have had sophomores complete a pathway, but typically it's juniors or seniors, and the bulk of it would be our seniors. So this next slide details for you our course offerings in the program of AP, program of DE, program of IB, and program of special education in Granite Bay. As you can see, Granite Bay is one of our 2 high schools that offers the IB program for our students. This next slide details for you our academic program offerings at Oakmont for CTE. So as you can see, Oakmont has 6 CTE pathways, again, each with an introductory course, concentrator, and final capstone, and then again, the enrollment and capstone completion data to your far right. This next slide offers for you our Oakmont program course offerings with AP, dual enrollment, IB, and special education. And again, Oakmont is our other school that offers our students and community IB course offerings in the program of IB. This next slide offers for you our Roseville High School academic CTE programs of study or pathways. Roseville has 5 CTE pathways, with each pathway again comprised of an introductory course, concentrator, and a final capstone course. And in the same fashion, we provide for you our enrollment data as well as our capstone completion data. And this next slide details for you Roseville's offerings for AP, AVID, which is unique to Roseville, dual enrollment, and special education. This next slide details for you our CTE pathways over at Roseville Pathways, which you know comprises of both Adelante as well as Independence. Roseville Pathways has 8 CTE pathways, again with the same formula of offering an introductory course, concentrator course, and a final capstone course. Again, with those total enrollment data for you at the far right and the capstone completion data for you at the far right. This slide details for you the course offerings for dual enrollment at Pathways, as well as middle college and special education programs. Middle college is unique to Pathways, as you know. That was started about 4 years ago, and that is an offering available to our Pathway students. And this next slide details for you our West Park CTE pathways. West Park has 8 CTE pathways, with each pathway again comprised of introductory course, concentrators course, and a final capstone course. And in the same fashion, we have for you our 2025 total enrollment numbers as well as our 2025 capstone completion numbers. And this next slide details for you our course offerings within the program of AP at West Park, within the program of DE at West Park, and and then within the program of special education at West Park. And coming to our last high school here, we've got Wood Creek with 7 CTE programs of study. Again, in the same fashion, each pathway offers an introductory course, concentrated course, and a final capstone course. And then to the far right there, you've got total enrollment for the 24-25 school year, as well as capstone completion for the corresponding pathway. And finally, I will end with, for this section at least, the Wood Creek's offering of courses in its AP program, DE, as well as special education. And then what we did in education services is we also wanted to compile for you a comprehensive view of programs by school for one page. So what you'll see is a comprehensive look of our special education programs across our entire district by schools. Next slide, you will see a comprehensive look of our CTE programs across our entire district by schools. And this slide details for you the list of AP courses offered by school across our entire district. The same data for you regarding our IB courses by school for those 2 schools that have IB. And finally, we end with a comprehensive look of our dual enrollment program across our entire district by schools. And I hope that satisfies your request. And at that point, I will turn it over to my colleague, Mel.
All right, thank you, Sue. So we will move forward on to student services. Specifically, the request was for intra-district transfers. So this is specific to intra. As you know, there are 2 different types of transfers, intra and inter. But this presentation is specific to our intras, which are our students that reside within our district that are choosing to go to a different school that's not their home school, but there are students. So just a few reminders with the BP. BP 5116.1 is on inter-district transfers. Just want to read the first paragraph to you. The Board of Trustees desires to provide enrollment options that meet the diverse needs and interests of district students and parents and guardians, while also balancing enrollment in order to maximize the efficient use of district facilities. So just a few other reminders that are within that BP. Inter-district agreements will not be accepted for students seeking to enroll in a school that is at or above its enrollment. And this goes for 9th graders who are incoming 9th graders who have enrollment with a prior agreement in their prior school district. It doesn't automatically roll into ours. The parents and guardians of any student who reside within the district boundaries may apply to enroll their child in any district school, regardless of the location of their residence within the district. That is Ed Code 35160.5, and no student currently residing within a school's attendance area shall be displaced by another student transferring from outside the attendance area, also Ed Code. So just wanted to put a few reminders in before we actually jump into the data. So, oops, going the wrong way. With that, this is a blurry, but gives you an idea, heat map. And I want to thank Tony, my miracle worker over here, who created this heat map for you. I have emailed you access to the heat map so that you can play with it. It's actually very fun. Thank you, Tony. But this is actual students. There are 381 applications for next year. 296 have been approved. So on here, it doesn't look like it, but there are 296 colors, dots. If they're green, it's for Granite Bay. If they're maroon, they asked for Wood Creek. Blue, Oakmont, and orange is Roseville. And I kept it to those 4 schools. So we'll walk you through this. But you have access to this via email, and if you click on each one of those little tabs or little dots, you will see an actual residence and the person that lives there. So you can kind of play to see where these kids live that want to go to another school. So we're going to walk you through that right now, starting with Wood Creek. So just for your information, we have 120 incoming intras from 13 different schools. And so I've given a graph on the left side there of the most popular schools, where they're coming from. Obviously, Cooley being number one, with 59 of the 120 coming from Cooley, Creekview Ranch being the second highest. So then I provided you a map on the right just to kind of remind you if you didn't know where those two schools were. And Wood Creek is technically not on that map, but you can see where Mahaney Park is to give you an idea. Cooley, 59 students right below Creekview Ranch. Those are where most of the requests are coming from. Moving on, why? This seems pretty simple, this slide, but it's very complicated because majority of the time, folks don't just list one reason. So in going through their applications for transfer, I decided I'm just going to pick the first reason that they list. And so for those going into Wood Creek, the most popular reason was vicinity or proximity to the school. So 44 listed that as the most important reason as to why they want a transfer into Wood Creek, followed by siblings that are currently at Wood Creek. You can see at the very bottom, it's past siblings or tradition. There were 3 people that wanted it for those reasons. And then other could be, I'm a teacher at the school, safety reasons, academics overall. We have many different other reasons that are put on. Programs, right in the middle at 16 students, and continuity, they often list things such as, I was a Wood Creek student, but we've now moved to, for example, Granite Bay area, but we want to stay at Wood Creek. So please accept our transfer to continue with continuity or educational flow. So now, specific to Wood Creek, here's the heat map. So you can get an idea just looking at these where folks are coming from, where the most of them are coming from, and you can see up top where most of those are gathered, and those I would assume are the folks that went to Cooley, and they are asking to stay. They're part of the Wood Creek community. They feel like they're part of the Wood Creek community, so they would like to go to Wood Creek High School. Followed by underneath below, where you're looking at the Creekview Ranch folks who are asking to go up to Wood Creek instead of Antelope or Oakmont. So the visual is kind of interesting. You can play around with that, and then you can see they're from all over. I cut off Granite Bay because there are no students in the Granite Bay area asking to go to Wood Creek, so I tried to make the map as big as possible for you to see.
Mel, can I just ask a question going back to the page, one more page? When you're saying they're intras from 13 schools, Cooley and Creekview and Silverado are middle schools?
Correct.
And you've got Wood Creek, Bus Park, Chilton. I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. How are they an intra coming from Cooley?
They're incoming 9th graders. So they're going to be our students. They're supposed to go somewhere else, not in Wood Creek, but they're still ours.
But where were they supposed to go? I guess that's my question. They're not coming from Cooley, they're coming from.
Correct, they're right here.
Well, what school? Yeah, I guess my question
They
is.
went to Cooley.
So Cooley might have been a transfer also.
They're most likely they transferred into Cooley.
Yes.
Okay.
So but 59 of them went to Cooley, so that's why they are asking to continue that trajectory into Wood Creek. They want to stay with their peers. Okay, so moving on to the second biggest one is Granite Bay then. So Granite Bay, a little different. We have 98 incoming entrants into Granite Bay, and this is interesting, from 24 schools. So I didn't list all the schools there, but the remainder of the 24 only had 1 student, so they were not listed. But obviously the number 1 is Olympus, followed by Ike. You can get an idea of they're coming from all over. but there are kids, so that, most likely, a lot of these are 8th graders coming into 9th grade.
So this is more clear, but so obviously, most kids from Olympus, Cabot are already in district, so most likely Olympus and Cabot, they transferred from, let's say, Ike to Olympus, and now they're coming from Olympus,
Potentially, yeah.
potentially, for example.
So reasons differ for Granite Bay. As vicinity was the most important reason for Wood Creek students, it's the last reason on here for Granite Bay. 9 of them are asking because of vicinity. Most important to Granite Bay families or folks asking to go to Granite Bay are programs. So specific program offerings at Granite Bay, current siblings that are there at Granite Bay, again, continuity, and then there's other reasons, safety, mental health, lots of things are listed. But those are the main reasons that they're asking to go to Granite Bay. And then you'll see the heat map, so you can see where the majority of these folks live and why they're asking to go to Granite Bay. So you can see up top, East Roseville Parkway, how many green dots you see there. That's technically Oakmont's area. But I would venture a guess that a lot of those kids went to Olympus. And then again, down below, Oakmont area, a lot of those folks, same thing. They're asking to move into Granite Bay High School. This is interesting though, because you can see green dots all over, all the way to the West Park community. We've got some folks asking to go to Granite Bay, way over there by Kitchen 747, Long Drive. And then just to give you the information, not a lot, but we have 28 incoming interest into Roseville, spread out completely around the district. 1 in Granite Bay, 1 in Antelope, and then everybody else kind of throughout. So I thought it was interesting that there looks to be 3 to 4 of them in Oakmont Island, and they would rather go to Roseville. So again, you'll have access to this, you can play with the heat map. And then this is Oakmont transferring in. There's 30 that have requested to go to Oakmont from other areas within the district. So you can see 1 from Granite Bay, several from Roseville, a handful there from Antelope, looks like 3 from West Park. So with talking about trends with inter-district transfers, this is something our team has been working on since the 21-22 school year. And we really do feel like we're making progress. At the very bottom of this slide, if you take a look, in 21-22, we had 509 total intra applications. And then the next year we had 577, so it jumped up a little bit. But the trend, if you go up to the top box in 23-24, far left, 488 applications. Then 448 applications. And then this year, 381 applications. So we feel like as a team, we are making progress because we are closing the transfer window. And we're making it just a matter of a few months now. When I first came to the district in 21-22, we had no closing date. You could apply for a transfer year round. And then in 22-23, we closed it in October. But you could still put in a transfer in September and move the school, move in September. School's already started. And then you can see the last 3 years, what we've been doing. In 23-24, we ended the window at the end of August. And that helped, but school had still already started. Last year, we moved it to the end of June. And then this year, we moved it to the end of April. We really feel like moving this window, closing that window, has made a significant difference in the amount of applications we're getting. It helps our schools, because they have time to actually create their master schedules. They're not constantly getting kids all summer long. School's starting, they're getting more transfers. So this year we ended at the end of April, and then next year we're planning on 1 more move, And then we're gonna see how it goes, because next year we're looking at a mid-November through into February. It's a 4-month window. We think that's more than sufficient to give families the opportunity to transfer, which we do want to give people that right to do. But it'll also allow our schools time to build their master schedules, to get our incoming ninth graders at the actual welcome ninth grader nights, because they'll know, and if we close that window in February, we're able to kind of control the number a little bit more. And you can see, although the data isn't perfect, it doesn't go down perfectly each year, our number at Roseville and Oakmont that we lost this year is definitely our lowest number. And so I think the work that our team's been doing over the last 5 years has made a difference with the amount of inter-district transfers we have, and we're hoping next year, by closing the window even further, we'll have either even less or even fewer transfers.
So real quick, but the delta between that total applicants and the approved, is that just because the schools were closed? Like maybe they want to go to West Park, you said no, or?
There's multiple reasons.
I wonder why you deny it.
Yeah, there's multiple reasons. There could be they didn't actually finish the application. There's different reasons as to why they said they wanted to play sports. That's not a valid reason as to why we would accept the transfer. So there's multiple reasons why they would be denied. So with that, I think the three of us have completed our presentation, so questions or anything else that we can answer?
Thanks. I really appreciated both of the presentations, because we've been having this discussion for quite a while, and being able to see the academic program offering and CTE program offerings side by side, well, not quite side by side, but adjacent to each other, so that we could compare what's offered. I don't know if we'll ever get parity between our offerings in all our schools. It's pretty much impossible. But I'll say it's really impressive when you see all in sequence how many different opportunities we offer. We were talking earlier about equal opportunities. We give our kids opportunities at every one of those schools in all of those different communities. And they're CTE opportunities, IB opportunities, DE opportunities, all those different opportunities. So I'm just always amazed at how much we can do. And then really looking at the heat maps, thanks Tony and Mel on that. It's very interesting when you see those transfers. It's really clear that Roseville and Oakmont take the brunt of that. And some of that is probably due to the Health Academy, some of that is probably due to the IB program. But as we look at those challenges and the outlying years where those disparities are, I think we can address a lot by tightening our criteria when it comes to schools that have deficit enrollment numbers. And we know that Oakmont and Roseville have suffered from that. And we saw just in that last slide that had the different boxes on it, that hit of hundreds of kids each year being sent to other schools, and then we have the issues we've had at Oakmont with being able to offer all the different courses, and to the challenges you have when you're running a school below capacity. Sometimes don't get the attention of the challenges you get when you're running a school above capacity. And they're both challenges, and they're both difficult in different directions. And I would argue that overcapacity challenges impact our campuses and our staff, and under enrollment challenges impact our students more. So I like our trends. I like the progress we're making, but I would like to see how we can incorporate in our criteria the enrollment deficits. Just like on the other side, we look at enrollment capacity as a criteria, how we can beef that up so that we can lessen those negative impacts to the two schools that are impacted the most. Thanks.
I'll piggyback on that with Pete. We brought this up before. Have we talked about what the minimum acceptable offerings are at each school? And you may not have the answer yet, but you look at so take Roseville or Oakmont, and if they drop below a certain number of students, what are we sacrificing? And at what point do we just say, no, we can't go down to 3 CTE course pathways? You follow what I'm saying. I don't know what the right answer is, but have you thought about it? And maybe that's something in the future we think about.
I guess if you were to ask me right here as I think aloud, in my mind, the minimum offering must be A to G and CCI, because that is what every single school district is measured upon on our dashboard from the state, from the California Department of Education. However, when you talk about wants and wishes, and we know this, Marla, you and I,
We want more than just that.
well, we've sent 2 girls into very competitive universities, right? That's not good enough. Just offering A to G courses and just offering courses that's going to help us look good in the California dashboard isn't good enough, because we also recognize that our commitment and promise, and actually an attractive factor for our school districts, that we offer the most robust curriculum possible so that our students are most competitive for wherever those post-secondary spaces are. But if you were to ask me minimum right off the bat, it would be what the State Department of Education measures us on, which is A to G, graduation, college and career readiness.
Well, so I'm trying to piggyback on, Pete's asking for the minimum enrollment numbers, and I'm asking for, okay, so what's it mean? And are we okay with what that means? That's all, and that's a hard answer. And so then I'll ask a different way. We have I love all the choice. And do our principals ever survey our community asking what would you like to see when they develop the new CTE programs, or is it more about, well, the teachers we have and this is what we can create? Because I know, obviously students vote by their feet of just the enrollment in a class, but
Yeah, so I'll give the most recent example. So I think you all know we just started the 2 mechatronics pathway, which is a manufacturing engineering pathway at both Oakmont and Antelope. And the unique thing about CTE is much of it, if not all of it, is funded through grants. Grants through our State Department of Education, grants through our Community College Chancellor's Office, grants through agencies like K-16 Collaborative that has a vested interest in building its communities towards a much more sound college, career-ready workforce base. So with those grants come criteria for selection. Mechatronics, let's just stay focused on mechatronics. The K-16 Collaborative grant that we earned, as well as the Strong Workforce grant that we earned, equating to almost $2.1 million for our school district and therefore our kids, really call upon us focusing in on developing communities who are underserved and low income. And so when we see these criteria as an administrative team, we of course look at our demographics, and then we consult with our school principals, and our school principals of course then would determine if they've got the staff and the students ready to take advantage of these opportunities. Specific to mechatronics, both Mark and Lindsay did indeed survey students, and students at both of those communities who just happen to fall into low income, underserved, underrepresented communities as per the grant criteria, were highly enthusiastic about exploring this manufacturing pathway that's now very prevalent in our community with Bosch. So it's a myriad of things. But so much of it is indeed driven by grant requirements and grant criteria.
thank you.
I just want to say thank you for the information and putting it together and the manner it was put together. Thinking about, ways creatively you can attract students to maybe our sites that are underpopulated. And I know we've got a great marketing person on board where we can get out a word about the great things. And I imagine some of that comes in during like open enrollment time, where you're sharing with students, families, what alternative options they have other than their school of residence. That could be a great way to highlight what's great at Oakmont or Roseville High School District. We've got new facilities coming, you know, there's lots of things that can be done in conjunction with this eliminating the period for intros. So just thought.
Two quick things. One, this is really helpful. This, I'm geeking out over it. I really love it. Thank you. And I know it took a lot of time. I really like it. I had kind of like very casually bounced this idea off Mel a while ago when we talked about it. If there was a way to put a cap on how many students were allowed to, you know, for example, if we look at Roseville High and we said 75, like we are going to allow 75 students to transfer out, and that's it. And when we hit the 75, we hit the 75, or whatever that number is, that would tying it into what you were saying. At what number do we lose programs, teachers, and if we can figure out what that number is and we just don't let it fall below that. I don't know if that's a metric that we have, or if we even just looking at the change from back here when we lost 154 students in 23 at Oakmont to 116. Did that, you know, what other changes happened in that time with staffing or programs? Did we lose things? Did we gain things when the numbers shift? And then the other thing that I'm just realizing, this is why this is so helpful, is that a lot of it is starting at the middle schools, because they're transferring to a middle school that then in their head they think, oh, well, I get to go to this high school. We have several friends who transferred to Ike because Ike has a little bit of a different reputation than Buljan, and all those kids now want to go to Oakmont, which is fabulous. It works out because it's a school that has room. But if it's Wood Creek or Granite Bay, there might not always be room. So it just is helping me to realize the problem isn't one that is entirely ours to solve.
And it's an interesting dynamic as Mel and I were going through it, and having been oversaw this process for 3 years. You can see on the Wood Creek one, the boundaries create the transfers. It's as simple as that. The boundaries have created the transfers there, whereas the complete opposite of Granite Bay, which is why people will drive all the way across town, we have parents who perceive it to be the best school. So I want to go to the best school. When they say programs, it's scores. It's test scores. It's your traditional mystique of why I have to send my kid to the best school. And part of the reality is, especially in the Crocker Ranch side, all the transfers in Wood Creek, that starts in preschool. And I've seen it with parents. They've already mapped out their kid's 12-year school plan all the way to high school. It's embedded for 20 years ever since these boundary changes last occurred. They know all the secret sauces how to get to their transfer. And so that's a tricky part. The other thing is we have to remember you have to be competitive. If you watch Mark over there, he's going door to door. It's a competition, not only within our district, Rockland and Whitney, Del Oro, John Adams, Western Sierra. We have kids going all over the place. And so like Roseville, unfortunately, when you look at the map, on the other side of 65, those kids have been in Rockland school since kindergarten. We lose about 40 to 50 kids a year before we didn't even know they existed. So like you see 109, about half of those kids are from the Thomas Jefferson side. That school can barely even stay open because all those kids are in Rockland schools. They just have to resubmit the transfer to us because we're a new district. But we also have 12 Bridges now in our neighborhood, and Lincoln in our neighborhood. And so part of the problem, and we've talked about caps for a while, part of the problem is, let's say you cap it at 75 and 50 kids don't get their transfer, they're not going to go to the school they're assigned to. They will now leave the district, or they will go to homeschool, or they'll transfer to a different school that has vacancies. So you get into the thing of, we want parents to be attending schools with free will, not force will, because then you don't get cooperative parents. You'll capture some kids, but it's always a caution too, because now you're running lotteries. You have a public lottery in here on who gets to transfer out and then to what programs are they going to. And then you get into the criteria of the transfer policy. If there's space, you have to let them go to that school by ed code. And so it's tricky, and Mel and I, we're still going to continue looking at it. It's just very tricky. But it is a competitive process. And the problem is, if we don't allow a Roseville kid to transfer because we capped it, we could not allow other districts to come in after that. Now you're losing all your revenue, millions of dollars of revenue. So it gets tricky because now you can't say, Roseville kids, sorry, you don't get to go to Granite Bay because you were number 76, and Granite Bay brings in 150 inter-district transfers. Therein lies the problem there. And then as you guys saw, all of our feeder districts, it's carte blanche, go to any school you want in K-8. So they let kids transfer all over the place. So then they get to us and it's like, I wanted to stay with my peer group. And they will get psychologist notes, doctor's notes. They will create 504s in 8th grade to be able to go. They go to IEP meetings to set up the next school they go to. And then when we say no, I mean, I don't know, I think we had 2 more appeals today for people who missed the deadline. All I can do to speak for Mel's department is, this is all you do. It's appeal after appeal after appeal. They hit your inboxes. They don't stop. These are mama bears and daddy bears who they are determined to get their kid to the school they said they were going to get their kid to. And so again, it's complicated, but as you saw, and as we go down the boundary road, whatever boundary change happens will create the new trend in transfers. We have, as you guys can see on the map, we just have a very messed up map. And where people live and don't live, and where our schools are located. That's the biggest challenge here. No matter what we do to transfers, and Mel's team has done a great job of reducing it, putting more hoops to jump through and challenges, and saying no to a lot of people. Those no's are hard. Because they all have compelling cases, and you really want to help our families stay in our district and not leave us to others. But that being said, it's the difficult part we're going to have is the boundaries. And what does that mean? You see on the map where Roseville drives all the way in. But people have a longer drive from there to Roseville than Pete was doing to Oakmont. Now you've lost community. Because in terms of these sports and programs and churches, we have distinct communities. You grow up through 8th grade in, let's say a West Park Wood Creek community, and now you're driving all the way across town. That's not your community, and it feels foreign. You lose the friendships, the parent groups, and so it is a huge challenge, what we have. I will say, in terms of the number, you have Roseville has more AP courses than our bigger schools. Really, in most of the principals that are in the room, programs are driven by people, not by numbers. We've got small schools with robust programs. Antelope was always a small school for a while, and Project Lead the Way had the hugest numbers. Oakmont, we got to remember Oakmont at one time was 1,100 students. And they built themselves back up, and that's what Mark's doing right now. And so again, we can look at other programs. I know we can look at IB. What does that look like? We have a natural feeder program in Roseville City, from I think Sargent to Ike to Oakmont. That could be something we look at. Does Oakmont become a lone IB school? A lot of kids who should go to Oakmont for IB go to Granite Bay for IB. And so, I think there's various things to look through. I do appreciate the staff putting all this in. Mel and I were talking especially, there are so many layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of information and all of this stuff, and none of it's as simple as just do this or this. But we will continue to explore it. I know our team is continuing to explore it, especially just for their own sanity and efficiency, more than anything else. But the boundary conversation will impact all of this no matter what. No matter what we do with these things, that boundary conversation will happen. And we'll continue to explore the questions you ask and hopefully make it a little easier to do. But yeah, just wanted to add that. Sure.
couple more brief comments. One, the issue with the feeder school district transfers and then the bleeding over, I think perhaps, I don't know how difficult this would be, but it would be nice if we could get a cooperation with our feeder districts to have a disclaimer on their transfers that just clearly says boldly that your transfers here don't guarantee or even impact the potential of a transfer to the high school district. Some sort of acknowledgement at least put out there. It wouldn't cost them anything to do it. It's a paragraph or a line on a form. And I do get what John was saying about the parents that will do anything to get their kids through the transfer. I think that exists, but it's not all of the population. I mean, 10 years ago, when I came to the district office, it looked a little different 10 years ago, but when I came to the district office to talk about inter-district transfers for my kids, I was basically told, no, we don't do it, there's a door. I mean, it was literally that blunt. And as a parent, we weren't happy, but we understood that was the policy of the school district, and we did what we needed to do and spent 9 years driving across town. And so I think sometimes setting the expectations and being clear in our communication and, for lack of a better word, being firm can go a long way. Because I think for every one person that'll push it to the nth degree, there's probably 3 or 4 people just say, okay, well, I tried. Like I say, we weren't happy, but we're happy now. You know, and so anyway, that's I think that's something we should consider as well.
Thoughts or questions? I'll just add my thanks for this comprehensive information. I had sent a lot of questions to Cabinet a few weeks ago, and a lot of my questions are answered as I look through this, and I really appreciate just having in one place where I can go and know that I can find these this information. So thank you.
I'd just like to make a unique observation. As I looked at, I think it's on the slide, the enrollment numbers, and then looking at the occupancy, that's not the word occupancy, but the capacity, site capacity, and then you look at Mel's transfer. When you put it all together, it almost looks like we should not. Okay, I think we need to modernize Oakmont, but shifting Oakmont from 1600 to 1900 when we have all that growth out west. And then when you look at the transfer patterns, it almost looks like we need to try to boost Wood Creek by a few hundred and not Oakmont by a few hundred. I'm just going to say that so that as we, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do any modernization. We need to help them, but boosting capacity is probably not where the bang is, because it's just where all of our growth is and how people are transferring.
I think I brought that up before.
Well, I made that joke about the giant West Park new building. It was a Wood Creek, but when you see this, it's like, oh, maybe that wasn't such a joke.
I think one concern is how do you want, West Park is a very large high school right now. Do you want Wood Creek to become a very large high school?
Yeah, well,
so that's the.
If you look at our capacity, we have space for what is projected out, 10 years, and that's with the inter-district. So we could even stop some of that if we had to. It's more of just the shifting that we need to be shifting capacity out west and not in the east is really what it is. And so holding Oakmont, and I don't mean holding, but keeping Oakmont at 1600, and that fits with the numbers and the projection. But if we boosted Wood Creek by a few hundred, that might help tremendously. I'm just observation.
I'm not opposed to that.
It's just an observation.
I brought that up before. I said, well, what if we added another classroom building at Wood Creek or portables? So far, the feedback I've gotten is, well, that makes Wood Creek a really large school, And so there's been some, like that would be negative. But I'm not opposed, I'm just saying we have to decide if we want it to be as big as West Park, really.
I'm just talking, it's 2,200 to 2,400, or,
But-
and that still makes 200.
I think you're right though, because our problem is out west. I mean, anyway, yeah.
It is, but I think we also have to be conscious. I don't think the demographers historically have been very good at predicting when gentrification is going to happen. And the one thing we know, you just know anecdotally by driving around, you can see it in our numbers. The Roseville and Oakmont attendance areas haven't made that full gentrification cycle yet. And there's still a lot of the parents of the kids that went here 20 years ago are still living in those homes. And at some point, I don't know if it's 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, you'll see that change. And you can really see it if you look at school districts in other part of the states that thought they didn't need schools. They sold their school sites and let them develop. And then all of a sudden, 15 years later, gentrification happens. And so one of the things that would be interesting, Joe, is to ask how they model, if they do at all, how they think about gentrification and how do you predict that. I don't think we really can predict it, but we also have to be careful that we, as we make these decisions, that there's that little bit of flow when those things change.
And I really just bring it up for as over the next year, we start to get plans for Oakmont, just being mindful of do we need to build capacity and just being smart, and can we take some money and maybe more portables or something. And I'm just saying, I'll say it again in 3 months.
I think it's good to brainstorm. That's where we will come up with our best ideas, so I think it's good. I had down areas that I felt like I wanted to learn more about: boundary changes, transfer policy, program and athletic offerings. We didn't really talk about if athletic offerings are affected, but it seems they're not. And then facilities, those were the main areas. And I feel like from what we've heard tonight, we're seeing that our program offerings are reasonably similar. We're offering really good options for our students at all of our schools. We talked about the transfer policy, and Mel's team is really working hard on that. Although we've talked about as a board potentially giving more, we've played with the idea of giving you, hey, well, what if we just say this enrollment can't go below this level, but you're not recommending that, Superintendent Becker or Mel. So I feel like, and our facilities, we've got a good plan for facilities moving forward. It seems like our next real action item is working on boundary changes. I know that we approved using a demographer tonight. Was that for these boundary changes, or I guess I'm getting to, what do we need to do next? Let's make our next steps now. Let's make our next plan. We've got good information. I feel like it's boundaries. What do we need to do to get a demographer on board and look more into that?
So we do have a demographer. The contract was just our annual contract with the demographer to provide us enrollment projections each year. Part of that contract does allow us to use the services of the demographer to explore little changes and tweaks. Now, if we wanted to do a full-blown study that would involve a lot more, that would be a different contract. So it depends on what the board, if the board is just wanting to explore little tweaks and kind of like the change we did, maybe others, I've already done some of that information with the current demographer.
Didn't we already give direction to start looking at those other tweaks and bring it back? So I was always envisioning this was one of the next 2 or 3 steps that we've already given direction to come. So
I felt like that Joe had sent us the information on those tweaks.
I did
And it made very little difference with those tweaks.
Yeah, I did look at some areas and just like hypotheticals of how we could, with the goal of trying to reduce the red, that we see out in 8 or 9 years. So that's something I could potentially bring back to the board. We'll also, the thing that time gives us is we're going to know our actual numbers of students here in a couple months that are at school next year. This coming January, we'll get new enrollment projections. So there are some things that are naturally going to happen 2 or 3 times a year, but I also can bring back. I was waiting for this meeting to kind of get further direction, but I've looked at some issues, some areas that are John, and we talked about different areas to explore. So,
Well, is there more than what do you feel like there's more little tweaks you can make than what you've sent us previously, or do you feel like we need to move on to a larger demographic study? What do you recommend we start with first?
I personally don't think we're in need of a large study at this time, but that's what I think. I think we're close, and but if the board is trying to balance more of the issues out west between, I call it the West Park, Wood Creek, Roseville, those areas, and how to, if the board is looking to make any changes where they want Crocker Ranch to start going to Wood Creek, and then you're looking into a bigger shift between multiple schools. So that would probably need a demographer, because that's bigger than just a shift a couple streets,
I felt like from what you said before, shifting a couple streets here and there isn't going to solve our problem. Isn't going to solve the enrollment issues at West Park or at Wood Creek.
Yeah, I mean, part of the problem is that even when you look out at 2032, 33, we're going from 11,000 to 14,000. We have our schools are built at our current capacity, so there's ways we can alleviate the problem, but I think it's still going to be a problem. So, sorry. I don't know.
So I just, for some reason, I was under the impression, hey, you've given us as many tweaks as you can, and little tweaks, and that's not really solving any problems. So I personally have thought, oh, we're going to need to move on to a bigger demographic study for a larger boundary change, but maybe I have misunderstood, or maybe someone's understanding that differently.
One of the items I can and bring back to the board in maybe the next couple of months is looking at some potential tweaks, like the best I could do to alleviate the red, the next 10 years, and seeing if the board wants to move forward with that, or if they want to move forward with a bigger study, or give it a little more time and then do a study in a year or 2.
The other thing, Joe, is I know that Roseville has been having discussions with LAFCO about annexation for development, and some of that is within our sphere and some of it is not. I think it would be helpful for us to understand what that might look like, and I know you've reached out, but we need to get a little deeper on that, because if that annex growth is going to be, if the residential portion is going to be in those sections that we have versus the commercial of because they're going to have that other university site and all those other things. How they map that out could have no impact on us or a huge impact on us. And the biggest problem for us is going to be, it's going to be in the West Park attendance area, and it's west of West Park. So we really need to get some clarity, and I would just say if you feel that you're getting roadblocks, then there's other ways to get information, and the relationship with LAFCO might be one for us to explore, and I can assist in that if you need help.
Yeah, I know there was an article today from the city of Roseville that was just talking about Roseville, who's been growing for many, many years, and we're a couple years away from, but the article said build out, essentially, and so the only way to continue for Roseville to build is annexation.
And they have a insatiable appetite for that, because they're talking some pretty significant annexation and growth goals.
Yeah. Some of it may or may not be in our boundaries, and that's where we can impact us.
So I think we've got some good stuff. I think Joe and I can sit down and start to map out what the little tweaks can do. If there's other ones, more creative, colorful, street changes, neighborhood changes, if that's doable. And then obviously if the demographer says, sorry, we got a contract out to do more, then we can discuss what that can look like and start maybe trying to map out what it looks like when we reconvene at the end of July. And maybe map out some different types of presentations or conversations or Friday updates, or how we want to go about building up to a bigger conversation or something along those lines like that.
I think that sounds good, and one of you said something that I thought would be really helpful, a disclaimer of some kind, like on those K-8 sites.
What's interesting is our former, was it Olympus or Cabot office person over here? Which one were you at?
Olympus.
So back in the day, correct me if I'm wrong, they told you if you transferred into Olympus, you were not going to be going to Granite Bay. That was, 25 years ago maybe, but pretty antelope days. So early 2000s, mid 2000s. I mean, that was correct though, right? When they transferred in, you were told, no guarantee.
We had a lot of upset parents knowing that their kids probably weren't going to Granite Bay as much as they wanted, and what can we do to get in there?
Yeah, that's when Granite Bay was at full capacity.
Yeah, but just some sort of expectation management, I guess, would feel helpful. And then I know Tony's already doing an exceptional job at this, but I feel like if everybody could see all of what we see and all the different offerings at each school, there would maybe be just more openness to all of the schools. Personally, I went to 5 different schools through K-8 and 3 different high schools, and we drove all over and had to move and transfer, and that was great. I mean, I loved that. I don't feel like it inhibited my education in any way. Conversely, my children are the complete opposite, and they've been all together with all their friends from K through 12, and that's been great, and they've loved that. And so I don't think that there's a wrong or a right way. It's just managing expectations for our families and communicating, and people knowing, like, ooh, just because I go here doesn't mean I'm for sure going to get to go to this school. So anyway, this was all really helpful, and I think it's a big, complicated problem and multi-pronged solutions.
Except I don't feel like it's a crisis as I look at this
Right.
now. I feel like we've made some changes, and we're not in a crisis. Unless you tell me otherwise. But and really, we have an opportunity with boosting Oakmont numbers earlier that would help.
And there's just a lot of growth, as Pete
I know,
spoke to,
and that's-
that could change a lot of things. I kind of showed you some of those maps and the county and what's happening, so it's just a lot to slowly dive into. Okay, so let me see where we are. We are on 9.3, staff comments. Anything? No, you guys want to go home. Okay, 10 are,
I have a request for 10.
okay, we got a request for 10.
I would like us to have a discussion about instituting a purple star system in our schools. And I don't want to get too deep into it because it's not agendized, but the Purple Star program is a program to support dependents of members of our military. And so I would like to get that on the agenda sometime over the summer when we have time that we can discuss it, have staff do a little presentation and have a discussion on whether that's something we as a board would like to pursue.
Okay, very good. All right, well, I see you all tomorrow for board ethics training.
And then when is the TPD special board meeting anticipated to occur, 3rd of June?
Yes, so that's the Roseville leaseback final amendment to the facility project. We're getting the final subcontractor bids, and Kim will be reaching out. We're hoping to do it this coming Tuesday afternoon. And really the purpose of needing a special meeting is so that we don't delay construction. But that one will be a final amendment, well, not the final, but an amendment to the contract. And I envision it being a pretty quick board meeting where we can just get a
Single subject, just that one?
just that one item. Thank you.
Very good. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Second.
I'll second it.
All right. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those approved?
Yep.
All right.